Emperor Giscard suppressed Jay under his body, angrily interrogate why a slave knew his name. Jay still refuses to give up. Call the emperor by his full name, El Giscard Pasha, do you have this hobby? I am a man. The pervert, let me go. However, with his current weak body, he was easily overwhelmed by Giscard until he fainted. Just wrapped around Jay. Giscard just asked, "Who are you?" In his previous life, Jay was Crown Prince Levnod of the Stras Empire. At this time, he was 8 years older than Crown Prince Giscard of the El Pasha Empire. Today is the signing of an armistice between the two empires. Levnod actively shook hands with Giscard and hoped this agreement would be maintained for a long time. See you again if there is a chance. El Giscard Pasha, Levnod and their entourage prepared to return to Stras. Edrich made tea to help Levnod sleep better after 3 days of staying awake for the armistice agreement. Edrich is the youngest prince of Stras. Emperor Stras has 12 princes. To get the throne, Levnod killed all of them except Edrich because he felt sympathy and realized that Edrich was not a threat. Edrich became a close subordinate to Levnod, at the age of 16. Edrich seems childish and weak, but in fact he has admirable swordsmanship ability. If you can practice more, you will become a sword master in the future. Because he was afraid that Levnod would kill him, Edrich always hid his ability to use a sword, but Levnod did not worry about taking precautions and encouraged him to practice. After drinking the tea, Levnod felt dizzy and then vomited blood. He had been poisoned. Levnod suspects Edrich has betrayed him. After his death, Crown Prince Levnod was reincarnated as a slave named Jay in the enemy El Pasha Empire. Jay gained wisdom and memories of his previous life. Jay's family are all slaves serving under Count Vincenzo. He is a fairly fair and upright person. Most of the slaves who worked under him were satisfied. Despite being reborn into a slave family, but Jay is currently very happy and has a peaceful life. One night all the most beautiful female slaves gathered together. Among them, Jay is the only son. Everyone was bathed and dressed in soft silk clothes. Looking at himself in the mirror, Jay realized that he was exactly the same as in his previous life. Wait a few years until your body develops and it will look like before. The servant revealed that a person had a high status and had come here. If he could see them, they would escape slavery and have a prosperous life. Jay understood the purpose of being called here. Jay had also been interested in cuddling with men a few times before. But now I'm worried that I'll be pushed by some old dirty nobleman. Jay Tension tried to escape but was surprised to see the person in front of him. Jay forced his mouth to blurt out. El Giscard Pasha, the vizier panicked. How dare you call His Majesty by his noble name? Giscard was angry and ordered someone to make Jay kneel down and interrogate him. Jay without the slightest fear looked at Giscard's face. You would rather kill me? Giscard was interested in Jay's wild actions and immediately ordered Jay to stay while everyone was dragged down. With only 2 people left in the room, Giscard advised Jay to be aware of his status and keep polite. Jay still determined. You just kill me. After finishing speaking, Jay received a slap from Giscard. Jay angrily waved his hand to fight Giscard, but with his strength, Giscard was immediately dragged away and pressed onto the bed. Giscard tied Jay's hands and interrogated him, but how could Jay tell the unbelievable story that he had died and been reborn with memories of his previous life? Giscard clinging to Jay all night, Jay also felt his own excitement. Jay's strength gradually ran out and he fainted. Giscard, curious about Jay, is just a slave trying to act shocked to get my attention? What Giscard is sure of is that Jay looks a lot like him. Jay woke up with pain all over his body. He was angry and blamed himself for accepting the lowly status of a slave and then to be humiliated so horribly by that kid Giscard. Even if they serve under a generous-hearted URL, slaves still have to do as their master says, and their lives are even lower than animals. Seeing that her son was awake, Jay's mother happily hugged him. Jay reassured her that he was okay. At that moment, Dunpal, the emperor's knight, came to take Jay to Giscard. Dunpal pulled Jay's hand and urged Jay. He annoyed said, "Let go, I can go myself." It was the first time I saw such an arrogant slave. Dunpal was angry. He grabbed Jay and loudly lectured him. Christ Titan, the knight captain, appeared and asked Dunpal not to cause more trouble and to quickly bring Jay to His Majesty. Jay was impressed with Christ Titan's upright posture and strong breathing. This is an outstanding knight. Jay wondered why taking a slave around required a knight captain to accompany him. Giscard told Jay to go to the bed and wait. Seeing Jay stubbornly disobeying Giscard, he pulled Jay over and pushed him onto the bed. "If you don't want to be tied up again, you should behave obediently." Giscard examined the wound left behind the night before. "Even though I have used all the necessary items, it doesn't seem to be very good." Giscard continued questioning, "Who are you? Who taught you?" Jay affirmed that he had never studied with anyone. Giscard did not believe it because he had investigated in great detail about Jay, who was the child of a slave couple serving Count Vincenzo. There were 5 witnesses when Jay was born. From birth until now, he has never left his residence of slaves. Is it impossible to know the emperor's name? Jay himself came up with a conspiracy theory that he might belong to some group of professional assassins. Unable to pry Jay's mouth open, Giscard switched to another form of torture, making Jay tremble unbearably. "Jay mocked me for worrying about El Pasha's future." Giscard was even more aggressive. "I had 5 sons and daughters. You are worrying in vain." Giscard kissed Jay and comforted him. "As long as he was obedient, it would be okay." "I ask again, who is behind you?" Jay remained silent. Giscard, as a final solution, "We have to bring that here." Giscard brought a chain and then bent down and locked it around Jay's leg. Giscard threatens if Jay still not opens his mouth. "I will ask my parents and the slaves there. Maybe thanks to Jay, Vincenzo Castle will be drenched in blood." Jay clearly remembers his previous life as a cold-blooded crown prince of the Stras Empire, but now he wavers because of the slaves. Seeing Jay sitting blankly like a lost soul, Giscard caressed his face. Giscard then left and allowed Jay to rest. Jay tests his ability to escape when his feet are chained. Walking is not hindered but running is a bit difficult. Jay must leave this land to go to his palace. He was about to climb into the cargo truck when Christ Titan stopped him. Jay received the treatment of sitting in the same carriage as His Majesty. Jay insisted on not getting in the car. Christ Titan immediately pushed him up. Giscard sitting across from Jay. Jay worried that his parents would be heartbroken when he was taken away like that. 10 days later, the convoy arrived at El Pasha's royal palace and everyone gathered to welcome His Majesty's return. There is Queen Brussels, daughter of Duke Marxy, and Prince Chirac. Queen Brussels is the only daughter of Duke Marxy, the powerful family that helped Giscard ascend to the throne. Prince Chirac is the queen's child. She is an ambitious woman who aimed to become a queen before Giscard even grew up. The queen said that Prince Chirac had been waiting for His Majesty for a long time and invited him to dine with them. Yet Giscard did not have any polite, saying he was tired so he wanted to go back to his room to rest. With the current situation, Jay can temporarily rest assured that his parents and the slaves in Vincenzo are safe. The servant brought the food to the room. Jay tasted the soup and found it too bland. Next, he used a knife and fork to try the beef. Giscard silently observed him then spoke. "You know the rules of dining very well, right?" Jay hand that preparing to put the piece of meat in his mouth stopped. Jay calmly replied that in order to easily approach the target that needs to be assassinated, one must be equipped with enough knowledge. These things Jay got from his past life's memories. But if you now say you are the crown prince of a great empire, he would probably be considered crazy and might have his tongue cut off. Jay take a shower then go to bed to take a nap. "It's been a long time since I've enjoyed life like this." While Jay was daydreaming, Giscard fondled Jay's body, then forced Jay under his body, despite his resistance. Giscard self-admitted that he was too immersed in Jay's body. Jay was led back to the palace and imprisoned in Jiskar's room. Jay was depressed because he had nothing to do. All day long there is only eating and sleeping. Suddenly thinking of something to entertain, Jay ordered the servant to bring the most precious wine, accompanied by dozens of other hearty dishes. In my previous life, I never drank alcohol, because I was afraid that while I was drunk, someone would stab me in the back. Jiskar returns to the room, seeing the mess Jay created. Didn't get angry at all, just smiled and patted his head. Jiskar just had a short break and has something to deal with. We'll be back in about an hour. It's okay to never come back. Jay took his time and tried to look at the documents on the table. Calculate, such a nonsense papers, and they dare to submit it to the emperor. If it were me, I would dismiss them all. Jay felt uneasy and wanted to use a pen to revise the document but was still hesitant. Jiskar returned sarcastically, "These days the assassination organization still teaches how to handle documents?" Jiskar forced Jay to sit still on the chair. "You keep going." Realizing Jiskar's purpose was to test his abilities, Jay said, "Why should I do it?" Jiskar, "Negotiate. If you follow orders, I won't touch you tonight." Jay obediently sat at the desk because this was an offer that was hard to refuse. And it's been a while since Jay last held a pen to write, so it's a bit interesting. Jay realized that Baron Barum handled his work very skillfully, so he promoted him to the finance department. Jiskar said that he also had his eyes on Barum, but he was Marquis Piandal's man. If he tried to become his own, it would easily causing useless controversy. In urgent situations, arguments can be ignored. But now the country is stable, so there is no need. After signing the armistice agreement, Jiskar still complied with his promise. Even though he knew it was difficult, Jay still asked Jiskar to let him go out. Jiskar refused. "I cannot allow it. If I let you out, will you tell me your identity? Knowing the other person's big secret in exchange for a little freedom? Then change to something easier. Spread your legs and hug me in your own way. If you do that, I will agree to let you out. Must find a way out of here." So last night, accepting Jiskar's offer, Christ Titan was assigned to follow and monitor Jay. Everyone around was curious when they saw him, a luxuriously dressed kid who didn't look like a criminal but had chains on his feet, walking around the palace. Christ Titan said, "Stop here, Jay, don't go any further." Jay guesses that the tower ahead is the magic tower. Mages will use magic stones as a source of power. That's why magic stones are very rare and must be carefully preserved. As long as he has the magic stone in his hand, Jay can escape from here immediately. Jay just went everywhere in the palace to get the necessary information. He arrived at the training area of the Royal Guard Knight Helpusher. Dunpel shouted that this was not a place where a slave could return. However, what Jay is concerned about right now is that the skills of the Knight Army are quite bad. Jay confidently picked up his sword. "At this level, I can confront them." Seeing the strange actions of Jay, a knight named Quat, the other guy put the sword down quickly. Christ Titan immediately moved forward and stopped. "This is your Highness's people. Get away, Christ Titan, I'll show you something interesting, so step back a bit." The knight stepped forward and raised his sword towards Jay. "Put down the sword before I take your life." As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his sword at Jay. He quickly raised his sword to block, and the two began to compete in skill and strength. The two swords collided with each other, creating a terrifying clanking sound. "Jay has the advantage," the knight viciously said. "It turns out you've practiced swordsmanship before." In his previous life, Jay claimed to be a magician. But there is also quite a bit of knowledge about swordsmanship. Even though the chain was entangled, Jay still easily overpowered the knight. He knocked his sword far away. The knight panicked and argued that it was because I was negligent. Jay sneered. "If you lose, keep your mouth shut. Even if it's due to negligence, there's nothing good to show off." At the same time, Crown Prince Shirak arrived. He pointed straight at Jay and asked, "You are the person that His Majesty brought back?" Shirak came aggressively in front of Jay. Do you lowly slave know where this is? Who gave this sword to him? Crown Prince Shirak is 15 years old this year, but his actions are no different from those of a child. Shirak was so angry that his face turned red, constantly cursing at Jay, the bastard who relied on His Majesty's trust, so he looked down on me? I will give you a lesson. Your Majesty, I have been practicing swordsmanship for a long time, so you are not my opponent, right? Shirak was so angry that he was shaking. You dare, are you saying you are stronger than me? You shut your mouth for me. To avoid trouble, Jay proactively withdrew. He turned to call Christ Titan when Shirak swung his sword to attack Jay. Because he was too surprised and got caught in the chain. It seemed that Jay had to take the entire slash. Then Christ Titan reacted quickly, hugged Jay and blocked Prince Shirak's sword. Shirak shouted angrily, Christ Titan, do you dare to stop me? Put down your sword quickly. Your Majesty, this slave is Your Majesty's property. So what? Do you mean that His Majesty values this slave more than me? Knowing that Jiskar treated the Crown Prince superficially, but seeing him jealous of even a slave, Jay is helpless with Shirak's childish behavior. Crown Prince has not calmed down yet. He kicked Jay and fell to the ground. Before leaving, Shirak also threatened, you should feel lucky that it only ended like this. Jay calmly sat up, his clothes covered in dust. Dunpal wonder, what are you planning? Can't you confront the knight? Then why couldn't you block Shirak's attack? Why did you let yourself get hit? That's right. It was Jay who intentionally let Shirak kick him, he replied. I just don't like fighting with children. If you don't want to believe it, that's okay. Dunpal followed me again. So who did you learn swords from? Even though they are not elite knights. But isn't it easy to be defeated by a slave? Jay hesitated and then said clearly, I didn't learn from anyone. I've known a lot of things since I was born, is that okay? Jay tiredly returned to Jiskar's room after walking around all day. And now he's back? What did you do? See Jay's disheveled appearance, Jiskar asks who did it. Nothing. Jiskar angry. Who are you planning to cover for? Don't you know that you can only be safe under my protection? Jay is still indifferent. My ears hurt so much, stop nagging. Okay, then I will do as you wish. Now it's your turn to complete your task, take off your clothes. Jay was stunned because he had almost forgotten about that. He obediently took off his shirt. If he breaks his promise, there is no reason why Jiskar will keep his promise. Jiskar softly whispered. That is enough. Don't be afraid, Jay. Jay pushed Jiskar away. What do you think of me? I will keep my promise. I'll do it myself, so you also take off your clothes. Jay pushed onto the bed. He remembered the steps Jiskar had done before. But now you have to be proactive. Jay climbed on Jiskar and did it without any preparation. Jiskar panicked. Doing so will be injured. It's so noisy. Just do it quickly and finish it. Jiskar suddenly kissed him and then reversed the position. Seeing Jay injured, Jiskar said, I will never force you to do this again. Jay smiled faintly, very happy about that. Then Jiskar gently caressed Jay's body, then rolled around together all that night. Levnod as the 9th Prince of Strass, Levnod soon showed his outstanding abilities in many fields. Compared to his brothers, the Emperor always showed a clear bias towards Levnod. Once, Levnod came to find Emperor to ask for abandoning the idea of choosing him as Crown Prince. No matter what you say, the others cannot become Emperor. You will change your decision when you realize that your life is at stake. It wasn't long before the Emperor's warning became reality. Even when Levnod withdrew from the war for the throne, there were still people plotting assassination. Levnod is too superior to ordinary people, so Levnod is always an obstacle that they want to eliminate. Levnod never wanted to step on them to become emperor, but was not generous enough to die for them. The first prince began falsifying documents to plot against Levnod. With his intelligence, Levnod easily debunked this farce. Angry Levnod decided to report the case to the jury. As a result, the first prince was executed on suspicion of treason. Levno then began to deal with all the remaining blood brothers. The second prince died of poisoning. The third and eighth princes were purged and disguised as an accident. The 13th prince was sentenced to death. Even though his hands were bloody, Levnod never once thought he was wrong. I just killed them so I could survive. It's just that they were also born in that position. They do this to protect their position. And Levnod himself only knows how to do the same as them. That's called fate. Something rustled in the bush. Soldiers were vigilantly protecting Levnod when a scared, dirty-looking boy emerged from the bushes. He was the 8-year-old 11th prince. Last month he had just lost his mother and brothers, and the emperor had abandoned him, so now he had no relatives and no servants for the disgraced prince. Seeing that the boy was dirty, his body was skinny because he was starved, Levnod was moved with sympathy. "Come here." The boy was not afraid at all. He quickly ran to hug Levnod. Levnod picked the boy up and hugged him. It's been a long time since Levnod has felt warmth like this. Levnod decided to save this little life. "I will love you and keep you by my side until you betray me. Do you understand what I mean?" "Yes." "All right. Very good, Edrich." Jay absent-mindedly recalled the past. Giscard came closer. "Ask what you're doing, lounging around all day." "Nothing." Jay changed the subject. "Is this chess? Want to try? I teach you how to play. In Strass there is also chess. But the shape and rules are also quite different." Jay continued to immerse himself in El Pasha's checkmate chess. After 5 games, he won. Jay smiled contentedly. "No need to be so surprised. I'm good at tactics." Jay was about to stop playing when Giscard wanted to continue another game. "We also saw that at that time. Giscard doesn't like to lose. Remember when the armistice agreement was signed?" Levnod just shaking hands made Giscard stare with wide eyes. "He is not changed at all." Next, Giscard is the winner. Now it was Jay's turn to beg for another round. "You also refuse to admit defeat." Jay laughed. "Is that your chance for revenge?" Jay confirmed. "My personality is that I don't like losing. Let's play again." Suddenly, Giscard saw Levnod's silhouette in Jay. "There is something in the bushes." "Who?" Giscard shouted. Prince Chirac trembled and crawled out. Giscard angry. "Whoever dared to bring the prince into the inner courtyard?" Chirac hesitant. Because His Majesty refused to see me, I came all the way here." "Because I was busy." "Did you come here?" Chirac angry. "You have a good time with that guy, but don't have time to meet your son and mother?" Chirac asked. "Well, run away. Why don't you come to see me and mother?" "Why?" Jay asked. "Do you not intend to pass on the throne to Chirac?" "That's right, because the power of the Queen's Duke family is very strong, but Chirac does not have enough talent and qualities to inherit the throne. The Emperor's favor will give birth to power. Therefore, supporting talented people is good for the country." "I also agree with that." Jay remembers his father. He was also like Giscard now. Jay don't think his father is too cold-blooded. He favors him and tries to protect his position, simply for the safety of the country. A loved slave after growing up is still just a slave. Slaves often gave their children the same equal love. That love never dries up. Jay was so happy staying with them in Vincenzo Castle that he didn't have time to think about Strass. About 1 month since Jay arrived at the palace. His life is still chained. After the paperwork is processed, you will have the opportunity to go out. Jay almost had the finished remembering palace diagram. However, it still needs to be investigated further. Jay told Dunpel, "You've worked hard, change shifts and go eat." Dunpel angry, "Let's say you're smart enough to rival His Majesty, what about this arrogant way of speaking?" Christ Titan again was the peacemaker. "Dunpel, we are on duty, stop talking so casually." "Captain Christ Titan, do you think we are accompanying a noble or supervising a slave?" At that moment, the Queen's servant sent someone to call Jay to meet her. A slave appeared from nowhere and took over the Emperor's bed and restrained the Queen's power. Jay realized he was in trouble again with a big sign. There is also Prince Shirak and several concubines here. What's your name? It's Jay. Sir Jay kept the rules. Yes. Right. I heard you are very beautiful. And it's right. I understand why His Majesty pleases with you. Jay took a piece of cake and was about to put it in his mouth when he received laughter from the queen and concubines. It's not proper to touch the cake before drinking tea. Jay had to put down the piece. Because I couldn't drink tea on an empty stomach. If you ladies feel uncomfortable, I apologize. Really? But now is tea time. You should try it too. Shirak suddenly jumped up and scoffed. How can a slave know how to enjoy tea? The queen calmed down. Shirak, His Highness Shirak. You should calm down. Your Majesty must have taught him many things. Then she came to Jay. Right, Jay? It seems you are very loved by His Majesty. After speaking, the queen poured a cup of hot tea onto Jay's shoulder. Then pretend to feel guilty with a fake face. Oh my God, I accidentally made a mistake, and it was accompanied by a supporting performance from 2 concubines. Even though it was a bit hot, Jay still appeared calm. I'm okay. But if the shirt gets wet, I'm afraid Your Majesty will misunderstand. If you have a shirt prepared, I'll change it and leave. Even though a slave she despised dared to ask for clothes, the queen still remained calm. The queen is not stupid like Shirak. The most basic thing to survive in the palace is to hide the emotions. Shirak was about to play a trick again. He was holding a pot of hot tea. What else is this stupid kid trying to do? Shirak tried to pour a pot of hot tea on Jay. Jay closed his eyes tightly and endured it, but Christ Titan appeared just in time to stop Shirak, the angry queen screaming, "How dare you! Don't you think you will die when do that to the crown prince?" Because I was afraid that His Highness Shirak would be burned, I stopped him. Please forgive me for my rudeness. The truth is that the person who was about to be burned was not Shirak but Jay. Despite following Giscard's orders to protect Jay, but the fact that Christ Titan acted so rudely towards Shirak made Jay suspicious. Disrespecting Shirak will undermine their authority. That's why the queen was so angry. Jay guessed that Giscard wanted to quickly dishonor the crown prince, by using his close knights. However, Christ Titan explained that it was just a misunderstanding. Because you might get hurt, I unconsciously intervened. So the act of protecting Jay just now came from Christ Titan's will. Because the jacket was too tight. Jay took it off and out of habit threw it straight into Christ Titan's hand. Christ Titan was bewildered because he was suddenly turned into a servant and was laughed at by Dunpole. Christ Titan tell, Jay, I've seen you somewhere before. Not in Vincenzo, has obviously met before. Jay denied, you are mistaken, since I was born I have never left the slave's residence. Christ Titan surely, I am not mistaken. Surely I've met you before. If you don't remember, how can you believe? After walking, Jay and everyone stopped to rest. Dunpole grimaced. What are you doing, walking around all day? Christ Titan, I don't like that guy's attitude either, but I'm tired all day, so there's no need to worry. But aren't your attitudes towards me and Christ Titan very different? Don't you think that your words and actions as light as a feather made me do that? Don't easily judge others by their comfortable way of talking. Looking like that, but I'm the one of the 3 strongest in the Emperor's Guard Corps. But Jay's first impression was not like that. Jay sees that Dunpole is an eccentric person but is very cheerful when talking. It's been a long time since Jay was as comfortable as he is now. I am Dunpole Grant, the eldest son of the Grand Ducal family. Jay was surprised because Grand is one of the 3 largest El Pasher ducal families. Next is Christ Titan, the eldest son of the Christ Titan Wolfengamot ducal family. There are 3 great ducal families in El Pasher. The Marxi family of the Queen of Brussels, the Wolfengamot family and the Grand family. That's why these 2 people are so close to each other. Dunpole asks for alcohol. Jay wants to drink alcohol but doesn't want to get drunk, so he chooses fruit wine. People wonder, you don't want to get drunk but you drink alcohol, why don't you want to get drunk? It's because Jay was once poisoned with alcohol. That's right, now there's no reason not to get drunk. Jay drinks a few cups in a row until he gets drunk and stumbles and falls. Christ Titan immediately picked up Jay and lay in Christ Titan's arms. Jay kept calling for his mother. Dunpel seems strange, normally he's like an old man, but when he's drunk he whines for his mother. So cute. Hold him up, this is the person your majesty loves. Dunpel poked Jay's cheek. Just let him sleep and then take him home. Just in time Giscard arrived. Dunpel immediately explained that this kid thought Christ Titan was his mother, so he kept clinging to her. Giscard coldly, "Gave me here." Giscard gently hugged Jay. "Christ Titan, your way of doing things is not like you at all." Dunpel came as fire rescue. He might reveal secrets when drunk, so we gave him strong drink. Giscard still cold. So what did Jay do all day today? He is still walking around the palace. In the afternoon, he was called by the queen. Christ Titan added, "From what I can see, he doesn't hesitate to confront anyone." However, with the queen was different, he was more condescending and bowed his head. I don't know the reason, but it might be related to his background. Christ Titan seriously, "Your Majesty, there's one thing I'm not sure about, so I haven't told you yet. I've seen him somewhere before. From the first time I saw him, I had that feeling." From the first time he saw Jay, Giscard saw a face similar to that person, the same blonde hair as that person, the person I met only once in that distant land. "Who are you?" the queen asked people to inquire about Jay. "That insolent slave is still occupying the bed in your majesty's room. He is not hesitate to find him every day." The queen was angry. Her Majesty had never been so infatuated with a concubine for such a long time. After bringing 3 concubines into the harem, he has never been so fond of her, nor has she ever loved anyone in particular. But now you favor a male concubine who is a slave? Looking at his arrogant attitude, the rumors seem true. The queen couldn't hold back her anger. Why did His Majesty keep a slave around like that? Duke Marxie reassured, "Queen, calm down." The queen regained her composure. She was too excited. "I should have taught him harsher a few days ago when I called him in." "Father, do you think my handling was too soft?" "No, Queen, you should not arbitrarily lay hands on someone who is favored by your Majesty." The queen understands that, but the fact that your Majesty treats Shirakan differently makes her unable to hold back. While still crown prince, Giscard proposed a cessation of conquests and a ceasefire with Strass, receiving the support of close descendants of the duke's family. But most of the nobles and even the emperor opposed it. Giscard's position then became a bit shaky. Duke Marxie strengthened Giscard's power by marrying his only daughter, Brussels, as his concubine. Giscard successfully signed an armistice and smoothly ascended the throne as emperor. And as a result, the Marxie Duke family became the most powerful of the 3 great ducal families. Duke Marxie increasingly craves for power. That's why Giscard wants to suppress the Marxie family and consolidate the kingship. "We have tried very hard for His Majesty. So if he betrays me, I will definitely not leave it alone. Someone will hear it." "Queen. His Majesty just wants to show off his authority. What have we done for His Majesty?" "Your Majesty is not easily dismissed. I will advise you to chase that slave away." "Rest assured, my lady. I trust my father. Talking to you makes me feel much more relieved." There will be a welcoming party soon as summer begins. I wonder if that lowly slave will beg your Majesty to participate? It is also possible that he does not know his identity and wants to show off His Majesty's favor. Please rest assured and trust me, my queen. Giscard asks Jay to join the party. It's just a small party, so you just need to show up. It's 10 days away. I don't understand, are you planning on bringing a slave to the party? You deserve a medal for your courage. No problem. Lovers from poor backgrounds also attended the party. You are also my lover, so you are qualified to participate. Jay, as much as he wanted to go crazy with Giscard's words, ignoring things about his identity, Jay still couldn't accept the fact that he had to wear a chain to the party. Or are you planning to take it off for me? I also considered it but couldn't remove it. Jay realizes Giscard's intention to abandon the queen to follow a slave, and the queen will become a laughingstock for everyone. You chained my feet, locked me in the bedroom, and then took advantage of me. You can both find my identity and pin me on the bed. The important thing is to be able to suppress the queen. I have been locked in your bedroom for more than a month. Everyone will realize that the queen is no longer favored. Giscard suddenly pulled Jay back to sit on his legs, then gently caressed and kissed his hair. Jay was startled and pushed Giscard away. I knew it. Let me go. What do you know? I know you don't just consider me a tool in the political war, but you truly cherish me. Giscard smiling with satisfaction. Do you think so? Even if I now force you to come to the party for political purposes? Aren't you trying to convince me? The slave's opinion is not worth considering. Jay finally decided to go to the party. But with one request. Don't drag me into the war to purge Chirac and the queen anymore. I don't understand. Why do you show weakness in front of Chirac and the queen? Do you really hate Chirac so you refuse to meet him and say bad things? Actually, Jay also knows that Giscard is not such a cold-blooded person. It's just that expel Chirac is the best path for El Pasher. Are you saying we shouldn't expel Chirac? I agree with you to strengthen royal power. Chirac and his grandfather need to be purged. It's just pitiful for those who have to die. Aren't you also unhappy when you treat a child coldly who only craves affection? When he was a prince, Jay eliminated the entire royal family and his relatives. It's pitiful for those who die in fear, but there is no other way. Even if I go back to that time, I will still kill thousands of people and pile up their bodies. The queen and Chirac are seeds that need to be removed, so don't pay attention to that anymore. 10 days later, today the party takes place. Giscard taking Jay to the party. Giscard deliberately held Jay's hand and went inside. All eyes and much talk focused on the two of them. This is a party to celebrate the summer, so everyone enjoy it. The Queen and Crown Prince Chirac came to meet His Majesty. Giscard showed his intimacy with Jay. Even though he was disgusted, Jay still tried to cooperate. Just as he was about to drink some wine, Giscard whispered in his ear, "Don't drink too much. Jay's inner feelings right now are acting that much, my friend." Being slapped in the face by their love scene. Chirac extremely surprised. And the Queen was angry. At the same time, Duke Marquis rushed to Giscard. "Your Majesty, I apologize for having to say this at a happy party, but I think your actions are not up to manners. How many times have I told you? That guy has a suspicious background. Even though he was His Majesty's male concubine, to the point of chaining his legs and bringing him to the party, I'm afraid you can't do that." Giscard was angry. "You care too much about my private life more than official matters. I'm only worried about your Majesty's safety. Isn't it because of suspicion that the new person wears ankle chains and is detained? I hope your Majesty listens to my advice." Giscard turned out to criticize the Queen. "To be honest, it was because of your jealousy that you asked the Duke to come forward, right?" The Queen became even angrier. "No, your Majesty, why do you think like this?" Duke Marquis reassures the Queen to stay calm. Everything happened exactly as Giscard wanted. The investigation will begin after this party. This tense situation will repeat over and over until one side collapses. My role is over here. Can I go around for a bit? Depends on you. A woman calling herself Count Mateo came to greet Jay. Jay smiled politely. "Nice to meet you, I'm Jay." The two talked to each other quite happily. This person approached Jay out of curiosity or whatever purpose. Jay was used to dealing with scheming nobles. Chirac suddenly pointed straight at Jay's face and shouted loudly, "Without His Majesty by your side, you are nothing. What are you doing here?" Seeing Chirac acting childish again, Jay come closer and whisper, "Everyone here is watching your Majesty and me. Do you know why many noble people here approach me? Because behind me is your Majesty. This matter will probably reach your Majesty's ears, so let's stop being angry and end this here." Chirac left angrily. Having to deal with a kid like Chirac gives Jay a headache. Dunpel suddenly came to pat Jay's head for handling himself so well. Jay coldly turned away. "I ask for rudeness." Chirac standing alone mumbled something. Jay approaching Chirac shouted, "Do you know where this is?" Chirac tried to punch him. "All right. I will take this opportunity to teach you a lesson." Jay suddenly held Chirac tightly. "Stop being such a child, don't you want to become emperor?" Jay then pushed Chirac down to the ground. Chirac was still bewildered by Jay's words and actions. Seeing Chirac's pathetic appearance, Jay pulled Chirac up and shouted straight at him. "If you want to be emperor, give up your mother. Suppress and drive her away, to show your father how valuable you are. If you can't give up your mother, convince her and Duke Marxy to enjoy what you have. Don't try to be ambitious for power anymore. If that can't be done, then give up the throne. Or cover yourself with a blanket and hide in a mouse hole." Receiving advice from the person he hated the most, Chirac was angry and felt helpless. Without saying another word, he just left. Even though he knew he was just doing useless work, Jay still wanted to do the same. One day Chirac will be disposed, and possibly killed. Then he will know the truth, rather than die without knowing anything. During the party, Dunpel and Christ Titan always followed and watched Jay. They were surprised by what Jay had just said to Chirac. "Jay, even if you are His Majesty's male concubine, what you just said went beyond of your status as a slave." On the contrary, Christ Titan is quite interested in what Jay said. "What do you think His Highness Chirac will do? What can be done? He is still just a child. A few of our actions and words can hardly change anything." Dunpel wondered, "So why did you say that?" Remembering Chirac's appearance at that time, Jay replied, "Because he was so pitiful." Giscard came to call Jay back. Seeing that Jay was in a bad mood, Giscard sent the servant out. Jay angry, "What are you doing, now forcing me to change my clothes to suit my status as a slave? At the party, you adapted so well that it surprised me. My worries were really redundant. So you feel resentful because you were worried?" "No, luxurious outfits, royal banquets, social gatherings of nobility, they suit you very well. If you were born as slave, you wouldn't be able to do that." The people at the party probably had the same thoughts as me. Jay smiled faintly. "You're overestimating." Giscard suddenly caressed Jay's face. "This shirt suits you so much, it would be a shame to have to take it off." Feeling like something was about to happen, Jay pushed Giscard's hand away and shouted, "Because of you, I reluctantly came to the party already." "Don't you have a conscience?" Giscard said brazenly. "Is it really that reluctant? Got stuck with a bastard?" Jay shouted. "Obviously I'm only going because of your persuasion. If you have a conscience then leave me quickly." Giscard pulled Jay closer to him, shamelessly saying, "Is that right? But I didn't say I wouldn't touch you today." Giscard whispers, "Today I will make you happy." Giscard said many other rude words that made Jay's face darken. Giscard suddenly picked Jay up and kissed him all over his face. "This time I won't hurt you. Relax." This time Giscard did even more crude actions than before. Jay is embarrassed. "Can you do it normally?" Giscard said, "This is not tease, I'm doing it normally." Through some foreplay, Giscard knows Jay's weakness. Jay is angry and embarrassed. "You bastard." Giscard just called Jay's name continuously. "Don't call my name again." Giscard said, "Take it easy." "Impossible." Giscard caressed and looked at Jay, then hugged him deeply. In a trance, Jay heard Giscard calling him by the name of his previous life. Checkmate. Jay contentedly declared that it was time to admit that he was a strategy master. "Okay. I have to go. You also go back." 2 months after that party, the confrontation with the Queen of Brussels and her maternal began. Giscard, every day he leaves early in the morning and returns late at night. Jay having been banned from going out for 2 weeks now, Jay guessed that in these chaotic times, it was impossible to let a suspicious person like him out. Jay also had no intention of asking about the situation of Shirok or the Queen. When passing by the magic tower, the idea of approaching the tower to steal the magic stone flared up again. Jay makes an excuse so he can go out again. I don't have anything to do, I'm just staying in my room these days so I have a lot of free time. Giscard sees the opportunity, so we will increase the number of papers. Jay shouted, it's not like that. It means let me see sunlight, do anything outside. If you stop me, kill me. Jay realized he was getting too excited. Just pretend you haven't heard anything. Seeing Jay's confusion, Giscard decided to follow his wishes. At the same time, he saw the night straining. Giscard decided to let Jay go out during the day to practice swordplay, with the condition that he was supervised and not allowed to leave the training ground. Although he found it strange that Giscard let him practice swordplay, Jay still happily took the opportunity. Jay approached Giscard to challenge. What if I master it and harm you? Giscard still calm. Don't worry, even if I lose to you in chess, I won't lose in fencing. You're so confident about swordsmanship, aren't you? Suddenly Jay grabbed Giscard and asked, if so, can we learn something else? Jay faltered, magic. Giscard bluntly, not allowed. Giscard can't be fooled, you want to do something outdoors, why do you suddenly want to learn magic? Jay smiled wryly, naturally saying I should learn something, so I thought about it. Because if he can learn magic, Jay will be given a magic stone. If there is a magic stone, this weak body will regain all its past strength. This terrible state of helplessness, finally able to escape. The power of magic stones can influence an entire country. This is not something that can be casually given to a slave, so you should choose sword training or nothing. It's not easy to give up this rare opportunity. Jay said fine, let me practice swordplay. Just holding the sword and dancing a few times, Jay was already tired from the noise. After regenerating swordsmanship skills, observing Jay's reflexes were the same as before but due to poor physical strength. Even moving the sword properly felt heavy. Jay helplessly sat down on the ground. That's pathetic. Dunpel was surprised. Is that so pathetic? Just thinking about when I was your age makes me so embarrassed I could die. Jay grief. I refuse your assessment, because the person in charge of my training is Christ Titan, so what is Captain Christ Titan's opinion? Your technique is similar to someone with many years of experience, it is not an instinctive type of movement. However, his arms and legs are not like those of someone who has practiced swords for many years, his body has no muscles, his physical strength is below average, everything does not match each other. Jay smiled faintly, after evaluating, I should continue to practice. Repeat the horizontal slash 100 times, right? No, there is one thing I want to point out when I see your posture, I will tell you today, I will show you first. Christ Titan stomped his feet on the ground, swung his sword, creating a terrifying blast of power. Jay stiffened because he was so surprised. Christ Titan returned the sword, then came and gave the sword to Jay, let's try it. Jay tried to remember the steps that Christ Titan did, stomping his foot on the ground, putting his weight on his left leg, and swinging his sword hard. Even though he put a lot of force into his hand, it stung a bit, but the result made Jay smile happily. How do you feel? This is quite good, right? Christ Titan review, exceeded expectations. Dunpel was so supportive that he was speechless. With this rate of progress, perhaps in a few years he will become a sword master. Dunpel humorously said thank you for accompanying me to create a historic moment. Jay humbly says, that once we are determined, there is nothing we cannot do. Jay suddenly remembered that Giscard is a sword master, right? Dunpel, your majesty is proud to have become a sword master in the year of the coming of age ceremony. Your majesty wasn't resembles something like human. Be careful what you say, Dunpel. Dunpel angered Christ Titan again. Even though I heard Giscard was a master of swordsmanship. But I had never seen that image before. Giscard had only seen carrying a pile of papers all day. It's been like that since the old days. The three of us started learning swords at the same time, learned the same things and spent the same amount of time practicing, but Christ Titan and I only practiced one lesson. Your Majesty memorized and performed all the techniques well just by observing. That is his natural talent. In his previous life, Jay thought Giscard was a child lacking combat experience, but now Jay admits that Giscard has excellent abilities. As for Emperor Strass, Jay forced his mouth to ask if you mean Emperor Edrich, but why did you suddenly mention Emperor Strass, just as Jay guessed that Edrich had become emperor? I heard that person is also a strong knight. Is Emperor Strass also a sword master? There were also similar rumors, but Emperor Edrich had not yet fought, so he did not know. If it's like Prince Levnod who used magic in many battles, then I will believe the rumors. And Levnod died before you were born, so you don't know, right? It is said that he is the only fourth magician in the world. Christ Titan, you've met him before, right? We've met before. Suddenly Christ Titan stood still, staring at Jay. At that time, Jay was a mature young man in his mid-20s, completely different from the current Jay. Christ Titan only met Jay once at the agreement signing ceremony. 9 days passed. Jay practiced diligently, his physical strength improved a bit, and there was no longer any barring time. But Jay's mind still yearns for the magic stone. Saw Jay staring at the tower. Christ Titan asked, "What about the magic tower?" "No, because I've never dealt with magic stones before, I'm just curious." "You also told His Majesty that you wanted to learn magic, right?" "That's right, I want to learn magic more than practice swordsmanship." Crown Prince Shirok heard the two people's conversation, pouted and ran over to shout. "That vile slave! Who are you to dare to learn swordsmanship?" Something must have happened to His Majesty. Jay realized that Shirok had a change in thinking. A child who had never said a single disrespectful word to the Emperor. Now I can say something like that again. Jay respectfully bowed. "Your Highness, please go first." Deliberately trying to attract Jay's attention but being ignored, Shirok was angry. "Do you know who I am? I am asking you. What are you doing here?" "I'm looking at the magic tower." Shirok shows understanding. "Do you think a slave like you can enter a magic tower? That place is extremely mystical. I've even seen that flying broom before." Jay thought to himself. Using magic stones to do stupid things like blowing a broom into the air. Jay say, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Shirok thought Jay thought he was lying. The Crown Prince shouted loudly. "You don't believe me?" Shirok pulled Jay's hand. "Follow me quickly, I will show you with your own eyes, I will shame you until you no longer have face." Jay realizes his time has come. Crown Prince Shirok pulled Jay up to the magic tower. Shirok cheerful, "Hurry up. Today I will leave you without any face." Dunpal went to report this to Giscard, and Christ Titan intervened but still could not disobey the Crown Prince's orders. "Even though I'm very excited and impatient to go to the place where the magic stone is." But Jay still tried not to reveal it. Seeing the Crown Prince, the mage was awkward. "His Highness Shirok, are you here for something?" Seeing the Crown Prince bringing a slave here, the magicians gossiped. Shirok ordered, "Do it again so I could see the broom fly away. If you don't, I will behead all of you." The magician is scared. "Yes, Your Highness, wait a moment and I will do it right away." "Damn it, lost another magic stone." The magician muttered, "If Duke Marxi is suppressed, he will not have to endure such a useless person anymore." Jay realized that the position of the Queen faction had declined, and even these magicians were looking down on Shirok. "While the lives of my mother, grandfather and even my own life are at stake." Shirok just wanted to brag to Jay about his flying broom, a hopeless child. Even though he tried to observe his surroundings carefully. But it's not easy to see magic stones. The magician returned with a magic stone in his hand. Jay wanted to steal it immediately, but was afraid that acting hastily would make Christ Titan suspicious. The magician recited a spell to make the broom float in the air. Shirok delighted, "Have you seen it yet? Normally you can't see anywhere in your whole life." This kind of magic to soothe children is just a joke to Jay. Jay pretends to follow along. Yes, very good. But looking at Jay's reaction, everyone realized he wasn't surprised or interested. Chirac went from being cheerful to becoming sad and pitiful. How can I be like you? You have a low status and are not educated, but you know a lot of things. That's why His Majesty likes you, right? If I were like you, would your Majesty accept me? Jay sympathizes with Chirac, but this is also the reason Jay doesn't want to get involved with Chirac, the sadness of a child who will eventually die. I don't want to think about it anymore. Jay pushed Chirac away and rushed to the magic stone. Suddenly Giscard opened the tower door, ran to grab Jay, then knocked him to the ground. You bastard! Giscard forcefully controlled Jay and ordered him to quickly tie him up. Christ Titan, didn't I tell you not to let him go in here? Your Majesty please forgives my sins. Won't you let me step into the magic tower? It's funny, you don't forbid it in front of you, but you give orders behind your back. Jay was tied up and dragged back. Giscard threw Chirac an angry look. Chirac trembled at what had just happened. Jay was thrown straight onto the bed. Because there is no proof that I intend to run away. Jay had to pretend to be ignorant. What's up? What are you doing? Giscard grabbed Jay's shirt tightly. You're just playing some trick. Who are you? Aren't you bored asking? I am Jay, a slave living in Vincenzo City. Is there anything wrong with this truth? Giscard laughing mysteriously. Slave? Do you know how real slaves are treated? As he spoke, Giscard tore off Jay's shirt buttons, then used his foot to step on him. Jay angrily cursed under his breath. Bad guy. Do you want to insult me? So just do as you wish. If you don't care who I am? And what kind of person? If you just consider being a slave then so be it. Giscard stared at Jay. Then suddenly hugged him tightly. Why do I have this feeling in my heart? I have no reason to ignore you. Why is the humiliation of a slave so important? I also want to ask one thing, why did an emperor run to the tower with such a serious expression, just because a slave was there? Giscard pushed Jay away and continued to ask, who are you? Jay is disgusted. Look for yourself clearly and see who I am. What I say doesn't make any sense. Giscard seriously stared into Jay's eyes, then suddenly kissed him. Jay struggled but couldn't escape, admitting that he was Levno didn't mean anything. In his previous life, even he couldn't believe it. Giscard had to find and accept this truth. Giscard's eyes contained many things he wanted to say, but in the end he just hugged Jay tightly without saying anything. Every time the ministers met, Duke Marxy reminded Giscard to expel Jay. Look at the number of papers. The ministers were worried that the royal family's order would become chaotic. Duke Wolfengamot angrily pounded the table. How dare you interfere in His Majesty's private affairs? The Grand Duke spoke up. Someone seems to want to take the opportunity to expand their influence, right? It's funny, El Pasha's royal palace makes noise every day about the emperor's male concubine. Not because of the basic reason that the emperor brought a slave to be his male concubine, which was simple on the outside, but the truth inside. The emperor's side acted with the aim of strengthening royal power. Opposite of the queen's faction that wants to expand her power. If the queen's faction succeeds in chasing that slave away. From then on, they easily interfered with all the emperor's decisions and proceeded to dominate political affairs as they wished. The victory was not yet on either side, but Jay entering the magic tower made Giscard and Jay feel like they were using stones to smash their feet. That suspicious slave snuck into the magic tower and recklessly took the magic stone. Keeping that name is a danger. I do not interfere in your Majesty's personal matters but am only reminding you. Everyone started talking again. Giscard slammed his hand on the table and shouted, let's stop here today. His Majesty, Duke Wolfengamot, next time I will go to destroy monsters. During that time, the palace will ask you to. Duke Wolfengamot is worried, the situation is not very good. If His Majesty is absent in the near future, I'm afraid Duke Marxie will cause more chaos. It's not that serious. After I return, I will immediately resolve it, so this time you try a little harder." The Grand Duke reassured, "Yes, the extermination of demons has lasted for 10 years, plus the demonstration of the majesty of the Sword Master. It's no different than showing off the country's strength. Cancelled just because of Duke Marxie? That is the action that increases his authority and blasphemes His Majesty. To tell the truth, Your Majesty, I think the incident at the Magic Tower will be difficult to let go. So after you have suppressed Duke Marxie, please chase that slave away as soon as possible." Giscard angry, "Have you decided to put pressure on me with the Duke?" Duke Wolfengamot panicked. "No, why would you say that?" Giscard coldly laughed, "You had to choose your words. I'm just worried about Your Majesty. Everyone who sees it feels uncomfortable using that suspicious slave for this, and Your Majesty doesn't even have the intention to take advantage of it. It's true, it's also worrying, but from the beginning, Duke Marxie's power increased sharply when the armistice agreement was signed. It's also because our two families are confronting the Emperor." Although he hadn't heard any rumors, Jay guessed that Giscard was having trouble with the minister because of his escape. Jay was very grateful that in this situation, Giscard still allowed him to continue practicing swordsmanship, without locking him in the room. Jay calmed himself down. "What are you grateful for?" "There's nothing to be grateful for." Jay practices slashing at straw men. Christ Titan praises him, "Your progress is so fast that it's scary. I feel like I'm still very young. Take a break, rest is an important part of increasing your strength." Suddenly sweat flowed into Jay's eyes, he blinked. Christ Titan very naturally and skillfully gave the towel to Jay. Jay laughed loudly, "This situation is so funny, I'm a slave and dare to told you so." Dunpole teased. "I understand your heart, Christ Titan. But Christ Titan is embarrassed in front of everyone. Don't try to teach me anything, let it go. Next time, pay a little more attention, don't talk nonsense anymore." Just in time for Giscard to arrive. "How is his training going?" "Your Majesty, although his physical strength is still lacking, the ability is improving day by day. It can also be called excellent." Giscard grabbed Jay. "The increase in physical strength will help your ability increase many times, if you don't ignore it. That's about 5 years from now on, you can become a sword master." A sword master's assessment was indeed completely different from Christ Titan's vague praise, but the fact that Giscard stood in front of everyone, and then calmly said these words to a suspicious slave like him made Jay a bit nervous. "But why did you suddenly come here? Haven't you become much busier because of me? In 9 days I will go hunting monsters. And of course you will come with me. This is an event held every year. After returning, he will deal with Duke Marxie's matter." Jay was surprised, so he asked again, "Do you mean bring me along? Go outside the palace? If I let you stay here, the excited queen will eat you alive." Sword masters, those who set the highest realm, have never exceeded 5 people in each era. Every time a sword master appears, it will attract the attention of the whole world and the status of the country with the sword master will skyrocket. The fact that Emperor Giscard was a master of swordsmanship, that was of great significance to El Pasha. After ascending the throne, Giscard used all his abilities and strength to eliminate demons and protect the people. The people of El Pasha are all proud of their emperor. These monster hunts are directly supervised by Giscard. It is an important event to enhance the position of the royal family. At the same time, demonstrating El Pasha's position in competition with Strass, this year's hunt has officially begun. Jay thought that 10 years had passed and this event was just a formality. However, everyone fought very seriously. Giscard strongly drew his sword and slashed deeply from the chest to the monster's shoulder. Red blood sprayed everywhere. Jay didn't participate in the fight, sat back and watched everyone kill monsters. Seeing the magician holding the magic stone, Jay became interested. He was curious about the level of magician El Pasha. A group of demons surrounded the front, magicians chanting spells. Dozens of magic stones create a large number of magics launched toward the monsters. They explode and scattered monster horde. Review, quite excellent, the power of coordination. Truly an elite army of the royal family. Chirac is looking for trouble again. What does a slave know to brag about? Ask, what happened again this time? His Highness Chirac. Chirac got angry and cursed loudly and left. Helpless this kid shows no signs of growing up. As Crown Prince, of course Chirac is qualified to participate. However, because he has no ability. For Chirac's safety, Duke Marxy used his power to bring more than half of his men into the army. Bored. If that guy were the Emperor of El Pasher, this land would no longer have a future. Earl Rumford came to find Jay. He was the commander of the magician team. It was said that he was a very good magician. What's up? Rumford took out a handkerchief and gave it to Jay. Jay wondered why he gave it to me. Rumford smiled happily, not paying attention to anything took it and quickly went to His Majesty. He would be happy. Rumford instructed, wipe the blood off the armor, wipe the sweat, finish and return. Jay angrily returned the towel. Thanks, but I won't do it. Rumford was still surprised when Christ Titan stepped forward. This intervention is not necessary. Earl Rumford saw Christ Titan's reaction and Jay was quite surprised. It's true that I feel uncomfortable, but I am the Emperor's male concubine. Earl Rumford also had a friendly attitude. I also reacted gently. But why is he so loud? The one who is always so loud is Dunpole. Oh no. Christ Titan is the one who stands up in this situation. I think this is enough to understand. Earl. Don't underestimate him in the future. The soldiers announced that they would destroy all the orc demons. Killing them all in just one day sounds quite absurd. Jay was annoyed and decided to speak up. I know this is not the place for me. The orc tribe is quite crowded. So predictions about their living scale need to be reconsidered. Because they can attack suddenly and endanger the Emperor. Are you saying that what I investigated was useless? Calm down. I have also noticed this. Investigations will sometimes make mistakes, but careful preparation will limit the damage. The next day the army continued to move, having to climb steep slopes with both feet strapped into chains, causing Jay to quickly become exhausted. Giscard asked with concern. Tired? Go over there. Rest and wait there. Jay thought about running away, but he was so tired that he couldn't think of any plan. Suddenly Giscard came to Jay's side and used his hand to wipe Jay's sweat, then pinched his cheek and told him to be careful. Jay turned away in frustration. Giscard smiled and ordered the soldiers to move. Chirac's people murmured uncomfortably because they thought that Jay relied on favor and was arrogant towards His Majesty. Everyone continued to fight the monsters. The knights coordinated with the magicians to fight very effectively. Suddenly Chirac pulled out his sword and ran to where everyone was fighting. The person who always accompanied Chirac shouted, Your Highness, it's dangerous if you rush out like that. I can help everyone. Chirac did not listen to warnings. Seeing Chirac, the knight fighting was distracted. Before the opportunity, the monster used all its strength to hit the knight's head. Then in a split second he rushed to grab Chirac's neck and lifted him up. Jay shouted at His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. He tried to run out to help but tripped over the chains under his feet. Chirac having been taken away, the atmosphere became heavy. Giscard ordered to destroy all the orcs before sunset. There was no organization to search for Chirac because there was not enough time to divide the manpower. At that time, some knights rushed forward but no one could stop it. A demon that no longer feels pain due to excitement. Jay was about to rush forward, but Christ Titan held his hand. Jay was helpless because at that time he was neither capable nor good enough to risk his life for Chirac. Isn't His Highness Chirac your bloodline? How can someone abandon their child? Don't talk nonsense anymore, the prince is dead. Death. After this demon species loses its child, it has the habit of taking another species' child to replace it. Wake up from your dream, This is the consequence of rushing out regardless of the escort's warnings. Because of the Crown Prince's foolish actions, the Knight of the Royal Guard lost his life. Chirac's men and the Knight Commander clashed. Giscard shouted angrily, stopped, rearranged the formation, and continued hunting. If we cleared their lair quickly, we might find Chirac. But that takes a lot of time. If we recklessly leave, we will easily be damaged by surprise attacks. 10 minutes to adjust the formation. Giscard went to Jay to ask, "Are you hurt?" Jay just shook the leaf off his face. Answering, "No." Giscard placed his hand on Jay's shoulder, personally checking Jay's condition. Giscard's face showed no emotion. Giscard, an emotional person can be a good person. But that was not a wise emperor. Although it's a bit bitter, it's an appropriate choice. Of course, Giscard came to sit next to Jay. In another corner, the knights close to the emperor did not hide their joy. In contrast, Chirac's followers were all sad and crying. People always view things according to personal standards. Even for yourself, Giscard, if you want to save Chirac, do as you wish. Aren't you the one who wants to save Chirac? Talking nonsense is not like you at all. I said Chirac is a seed that needs to be cut off. Have you forgotten? Chirac is someone you can eliminate at any time, you don't have to let him end up tragically in the monster's lair. Then it's even more unsatisfactory. Either way, Chirac must die. If we want to save Chirac, what is the meaning of that action? But you will want to save. Even if the reason is cheap sympathy. Or anything else. Because of all those little feelings. Even though he knew it didn't mean anything, Giscard still felt sorry for Chirac like I felt foolish sympathy for the brothers I had personally eliminated. Because we are human, because we have emotions. There are times when we have to satisfy those small emotions. You don't need to be too strict with yourself, just do what you want from time to time. The time has come to act. That moment absolutely cannot be shaken. A wind blew, Jay's hair became messy. He tried to use his hands to fix his hair. Then Giscard pulled Jay towards him. Then kissed him, a hot, wet kiss, ignoring everyone's stares. Giscard changed his mind. This issue is so important. But His Majesty changed his mind after hearing a few words from you. In my eyes, you are very talented, everything is special, so from now on His Majesty will not let you take his eyes off of him. Dunpel no longer joked like before. As Giscard's loyal lieutenants, they began to worry about Jay's existence. Christ Titan said nothing, just stared at Jay for a long moment. Just like that, an army was organized to find Chirac. The search progressed faster than expected. The army found a cave at the end of the road. Giscard strongly slashed to death the monster guarding the cave entrance. A knight shouted, "There is His Highness Chirac." Chirac lying unconscious on a bed lined with straw. Surrounded by a group of monsters. Giscard stopped Jay, "Step back and wait in a safe place." Jay pointed down at his feet. "I think my safety will be more assured if you remove that chain." Dunpel hold Jay, "Stay still. Your Majesty, we will definitely protect him. Just calm down and go." Christ Titan seriously added, "I will watch over him with my life." "Don't worry Sir." Giscard confidently walked towards the monsters. The sword in Giscard's hand emitted a white halo. "Wipe out all of them on the way." Giscard faced off head-on with an orc 3 times his size. Giscard stabbed his sword deep into its thigh. The loud sound of bones breaking rang out. The orc let out a scream and then crouched down. Before leaving, Jay seriously though, must never directly encounter that sword. The monster began to rage. Giscard ordered the magicians to attack its head. Count Rumford creates a fireball. Hit it exactly on the head. After the explosion, its first half was burned black. Everyone thought it was over. Just take Chirac and you're done. Suddenly the half-headed monster became angry. It swung its arms and legs in all directions, hitting the ground hard. It created a landslide, rocks and soil began to fall, and the army was a bit agitated. Giscard screamed, everyone backed away, then cut off the monster's head once more. Is everyone okay? Yes, Your Majesty, forgive me. The aftershocks of the earthquake made Jay a bit uncomfortable. Christ Titan raised his hand to help Jay stand up. When his hand just touched Jay's fingertips, the cracks in the ground began to spread and get bigger. The rotten tree stump caught on the chain under Jay's feet. It drags you down into the abyss. Jay was bewildered. What the hell is this? Why is my life like that? This life is the same. Ends meaninglessly. Free falling in the air made Jay's mind dizzy. At that moment, Countess Rumford quickly used magic to create a wind blowing up from the bottom of the abyss. The falling speed and falling direction also change. Jay didn't fall off a cliff but into a valley with water. Jay, regain your composure, you can survive. The last thing Jay could hear was Giscard screaming, "You bastard! If I had let go of the chains, we wouldn't have reached this point." The moment he fell into the water, the heavy and cumbersome chains pulled Jay deeper. Jay was out of breath and thought he might die. Finally, he managed to float to the surface and cling to the cliff. Then, little by little, we climbed to shore. Chirac was rescued but Jay was missing. A heavy atmosphere. Giscard tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword and threw an angry look at Christ Titan. He was the one responsible for protecting Jay at that last moment. Dunpel stepped forward. "Your Majesty, it was no one's fault that Jay fell into the abyss, but because of the chain not long ago, Jay said that removing the leg chains would ensure his safety." Giscard order, "Search carefully around here for me." Giscard looked down into the valley trying to find Jay. The time has come to act. That moment absolutely cannot be shaken. Is this the result of giving yourself over to meaningless emotions? Jay escaped death but was swept away by the water. Jay smiled. This was his chance to escape. Even though there are no swords or magic stones. But Jay is still very confident he can avoid the monster. Jay picked up a tree branch as a weapon. "Okay, let's go." Christ Titan sweating profusely, he searched the valley and still couldn't find any trace of Jay. What happened to Jay? Is he dead? No, he is an outstanding child, so he will survive.